So I've been getting asked a hell of a lot lately about Battlefield 2042 and whether it's worth getting now or not. Obviously the game has gone through some major changes and it is also now having its free weekends and stuff like that, and I've just been absolutely bombarded with questions about whether or not it's worth getting. So today I kind of just wanted to touch on that and do my best to answer that question. It is a very hard question to answer, but I'm going to do my best. Now today's video is sponsored by Aura, but I will touch on those guys a little bit later on in the video. So with that being said, let's get stuck right into it. Now the first thing that I wanted to say, which this is a pretty boring and simple answer and it's going to make this video feel pretty redundant to be honest, but the game is free on Game Pass and EA Play Pro, and so the simple answer to this question is, if you're wondering whether it's worth it or not and you have access to Game Pass or EA Play Pro, literally just go download it yourself and give it a try. There's nothing to lose there. Worst case scenario, you download the game, you play it for 5 minutes and you think this sucks and you delete it. That's literally the worst possible thing that can happen, but I'd be pretty shocked if that is the case, because I do think the game has made leaps and bounds in the last few months, and that is obviously the easiest way to find out. So I definitely recommend doing that if you do have Game Pass or EA Play Pro, but obviously not everyone has that, so obviously it isn't quite as simple as just download the game and try for yourself. Now I'm sure a lot of you would have heard about the game when it first came out. It had a very rough launch, one of the worst launches I can remember in a long time. Not quite on the level of, you know, Cyberpunk and those type of games, but it was, you know, definitely not too far off. It was very buggy, it had a lot of missing features, it was very bland, the base maps and the base content was very bland, and it also felt very different from previous Battlefield games. We obviously have the specialist system, there was a bigger player count, all those sorts of things, and it just definitely felt like a very different Battlefield experience, and to a lot of people it didn't even feel like a Battlefield experience at all. It just felt like some random shooter that on top of that was also really buggy and missing a lot of very basic features. One of the other biggest issues that launched with the game was that the performance of the game was terrible at launch, especially on PC. It wasn't overly bad on like next gen consoles, but on previous gen consoles as well as PC it was borderline unplayable for a lot of people, and so this resulted in the game going from being really hyped up. All of the initial trailers and stuff were just so exciting and everyone was really excited for the game. It looked like this was kind of the comeback game after obviously Battlefield 5 didn't have the best reputation, and for it to sort of crash and burn like that, it definitely started off on the wrong foot, and it has taken quite a while to sort of pull itself out of that ditch that it unfortunately put itself in by probably a lot of different reasons. Obviously it launched during COVID and that sort of thing. There are plenty of just legitimate, like almost excuses that can be made for the game because it came out in a pretty rough time, but also a lot of it was like design decisions and stuff that were done on purpose and they just did not pay off at all. Now, before we go any further, I don't know if you guys remember because it was actually on my other channel, but about 18 months ago now, my YouTube channel was hacked and I completely lost control of it for about 3 days. And then a few days later, I also had my Netflix account hacked as well. And ever since then, I've come to realize this stuff can happen very easily. And I've been like super safe about that kind of thing ever since that happened. That's why I'm excited to partner with today's sponsor, Aura, which is an app on Apple, Android, Mac, and Windows devices that combines a secure VPN, an antivirus, a password manager, fraud and identity theft protection, and even a spam list removal list, all rolled into one single app. Aura is an easy to use app that includes everything you need to stay safe online. It even scans the internet and even the dark web looking for your emails, passwords, and social security numbers, and then even sends you an alert if it does ever find anything out there, which is a crazy powerful tool in itself. Aura also automatically requests the removal of your info on any websites that result in spam emails or phone calls, which will save you a lot of time having to do that yourself. And obviously, like I mentioned, it also includes a VPN, which I'm sure you guys know what that is, encrypting all of your data and browsing history online, as well as allowing you to change your location to access sites like Netflix in different countries, for example, which means you can access shows and movies that you can't actually access in your own country. I'm sure a lot of you guys already have an app for each of these things. You might already have a VPN, you might have an antivirus protection, you might have a password manager, but I can almost guarantee that you don't have it all bundled into the same app at a price that is on average about 63% cheaper than getting these individually. Now, if you guys sign up with my link, which is aura.com/Sammy, and that link can be found in the description and the pinned comment, you guys can access a 2-week free trial, so you don't even have to pay right away, and you can test it out for yourselves and see if you like it. But I guarantee you'll be shocked by the amount of data that Aura finds in those first 2 weeks, and it helps you to remove them online. Again, that link is aura.com/Sammy, and that link is in the description and the pinned comment. Head on over, sign up for a 2 free-week trial, which also massively helps me and the channels as well. But with that being said, guys, let's get stuck back into the video. So obviously we've touched on the launch of the game and how poorly it pretty much went, but now I want to get into essentially what's changed since launch, and the short answer to that is a hell of a lot. Pretty much all of the main issues that were around at the launch of the game in terms of like the performance, the missing features. Now there are still a few missing features that I will touch on, but also just like bug fixes and stuff. All of that has been corrected to where the game is in an actual good state now. It is a very solid shooter. But on top of that, they've also just started to add content that is also good on top of the actual improvements of the game, if that makes sense. For those who weren't aware, they did delay Season 1 until I think 8 months after it was actually meant to, just to try and get the game sorted. But once they've gotten into Season 1, and we are currently in Season 3 at the moment, ever since Season 1 launched, the content they've put into the game has been really, really solid. The 3 maps that we've gotten in Exposure, Stranded, and Spearhead are without a doubt the 3 best maps in the game, and they've kind of all gotten better as they've gone as well. So Exposure was the first one, and that was really good. It was easily the best map in the game. Season 2 then gave us Stranded, which was somehow even better than Exposure, and then Season 3 gave us Spearhead, which again was somehow better than the other 2. So not only are they adding good content, but it does actually feel like it's kind of getting better every time as well. And obviously on top of the maps, we get like specialists and weapons and all the battle pass content as well, which again has all been really solid, and it kind of does also feel like it's improving each and every season. Now the only downside to the content is that the content we're getting is definitely still a little bit slow. Each season we're really only getting 1 map, 1 specialist, and about 3 weapons, plus it's been about 9 portal weapons getting added into All Out Warfare. So really that is a lot of weapons getting added, but they are kind of already in the game, so a lot of people don't really count that as content. And then 100 tiers worth of battle pass content plus whatever they add to the store as well. So it's a fair bit of content, but in terms of like the big things like the maps, the game modes, the specialists, those sorts of things, there's not too much content on that front. All of the smaller stuff I think is on par with pretty much every other game that has ever launched really, but definitely in terms of maps and stuff, that is a little bit slower than I think everyone would kind of like it to be. But in saying that, we all kind of just know that that's how it's going to be at this point, and it's kind of the same with a lot of other games out there. Even Call of Duty has slowed down a bit in terms of how many maps they're putting out per season. They used to put out 2 maps at the start of a season and 2 maps in the middle of a season, and now it's just 1 and 1. So it's not just Battlefield that's doing this. I think it's to do with COVID. A lot of layoffs have unfortunately had to happen. A lot of people still working from home and that sort of thing. I think COVID has had a big impact, and it's kind of just starting to hit the game industry now rather than like when it first hit. Because obviously games take a long time to develop, so it's kind of on a delay. Like games usually take 2 to 3 years minimum to be made, if not a lot longer depending on the game. And so because we're now nearly 3 years away from when COVID first hit, we're kind of getting those effects now. Now on top of that, like I said, there are still a few small issues that do need fixing. Some of the missing features, the key one being a server browser. Little things like that are definitely still in need of fixing, and the game is definitely far from perfect. But with that being said, a lot of those things are actually still in the process of being fixed. So for those who weren't aware, the specialist system is actually being changed back to a class system, and that is going to be coming in Season 4. They're still doing map rework, so they're kind of going back and fixing all of the base maps that were definitely a little bit underdeveloped and I guess you would say bland and boring. They're kind of going back and fixing those maps up. And so even though the game is definitely still not in like a perfect state, it has gotten a lot better, and it is still getting better as we go as well. Now, if you were to ask me, is it the best Battlefield game ever? The answer is absolutely not. It's not even close, to be honest. But what I will say is I do think it is actually now a decent shooter at this point. They have really turned this game around to where it's a genuinely good shooter. It's not amazing. It's not the best game in the franchise. It's probably not even the best shooter of the last, couple of years or anything like that. But it is at the point for me personally, and obviously this is just subjective, but for me personally, it is at the point where it's finally a good shooter. If someone says, do you think the game's good? My answer to that now is yes, which when it launched, I definitely would not say that. Even though I enjoyed the game at launch, I could never bring myself to say it's a good game, because it just definitely was not. But I think I'm actually confident enough to say that now. So hopefully that kind of answers that question for you guys, and I do think it is worth getting at this point if you are looking for something new to play. Like I said, if you have Game Pass or EA Play Pro, then the easiest way is to just get it for free through those and try it out. And like I said, if you don't like it, then it doesn't even matter. But even then, if you do have to pay for the game, I do still think it is worth it if you are a big fan of shooters. And obviously depending on where you get it from, it's probably pretty damn cheap in a lot of stores now. I'm not too sure on the price in the actual like PlayStation and Xbox stores, but if you go around to your local stores, I'm pretty sure it's going to be like half price in a lot of places. So for me personally, I absolutely do think the game is worth it now, and I've kind of been holding off on saying that for a very long time. I've been asked this question all the way since launch, and I pretty much have always said I don't think it is worth getting. I enjoy it, so it's easy for me to say, yeah, I think it's worth getting. But telling other people how they should spend their money, I've always kind of just said, nah, I just think it's not worth getting. But I'm finally confident enough in the game that I do actually think it is worth getting now. So hopefully that answers the question for you guys. It's been a very long journey to get the game here, but it is exciting that we're finally in a pretty good spot, and there is still more content to come. So it's not like you're getting at the end of its cycle either. There's also Season 4 and Season 5 confirmed, and there's every chance we get a bit more after that as well. So hopefully if you guys do pick up the game, then you do enjoy your experience with it. For those who have played, I'm very keen to hear what you guys think, whether you agree or disagree with me. Be sure to leave that down in the comments, because obviously this is just my opinion. Just because I think it's now finally worth getting, that doesn't mean that it, objectively is or anything like that. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments section, and anyone who's wondering about the game, they can obviously read the comments and get a better gauge of that as well. But with that being said, thank you guys very much for watching. You guys have a great day, and I'll see you all out there on the battlefield.